Welcome to the Board Game Barbecue Podcast, episode number 316. My name is Mitch, and we are brought to you today by our sponsor, Advent Games, our Patreons. And I have a new announcement to make. We have a new sponsor, and that is More Than Meeples, a board game store located in Brisbane. Most of you are probably already familiar with More Than Meeples. They have been supporting us for a while. They were really close to us in PlayCon, did a whole lot of work with us to get that up and off the ground. And they've also been our pop-up store in Brisbane for some time. So thank you so much to More Than Meeples for jumping on board. It is great to have you as part of the team. What do you guys think about that?
I was going to say, you might know Tristan and Sig because they were lining up to buy copious amounts of Lorcana cards at PAX. That myself and someone else on this episode may also be guilty of, because I'm staring at their starter decks as we speak. Yeah, as we speak, to the magic of the interwebs.
I didn't know that they were on the camera, actually. Oh, my God. They're just sitting there far out, man. It's just the worst.
So you may or may not have figured out we have Conor with us today from Warrnambool.
What's up, Mitch? What's up, D?
And we have Dana all the way from sunny Brisbane, but an hour behind all of us.
Yes.
Which is the way we like it. All right. So let's kick off. I'm excited about today's episode. I hope you guys have got a lot to talk about and some cool stories to tell, because this is our first episode that we're doing officially, our first proper normal episode post-PAX.
Yeah. Yep.
How was it?
I loved it.
Big sigh by Dana.
No.
Oh, gee. Just,
I just get really hyped up, and then when I come home, I'm just depressed. It was just so good. It was my first one. Loved it, and I can't wait to go to the next one. So,
How about you, Condog?
Yeah, it's a bit like my Christmas, really. You know, I take time off work. I'm surrounded by like-minded people. It's board games. It's video games. It's my diet goes out the window.
Is it like the place that you imagine? You know Happy Gilmore, when he goes to his happy place? Chubbs is there playing the piano. And
it is exactly like that. The only thing that would make it better is if I was rich enough, I would just pay for the members, my friends who aren't members of our community that frequent these things, I would pay for them to have a day off. I just pay their work. Let's say I was a billionaire, whatever. I was like, no, I will pay for your day of work, and you can come and play games with me and experience why I love this so much.
Yeah.
Because I think it does open up, and I guess similar to when people came to PlayCon, they come in and they see, oh, this is a board game, and I think we'll probably talk about it a little bit, and we talked about it in our episode, but having the PAX Rising there and some of those cool board games that they wanted to show off in the main hall next to the video games, people were like, oh, this is what board games are like now? I was talking to a guy, and we were playing this deck builder, and he goes, oh, the only other game I played like this, I can't remember, but you had to buy coins. I was like, yeah, Dominion. He's like, yeah, that was really cool and really innovative. But I was like, I guess, not to be gatekeeper Gary, but that's an old game, man. But I'm glad you're here and doing this stuff. So I loved it. I've been looking forward to it for I've probably been looking forward to it since PlayCon, honestly.
Yeah, 100%. And I think to Dana's point, there's definitely a come down afterwards. You hype yourself up so much, and then you get along there, and for those of us that travel interstate, it's a full-on trip and everything, and then you do kind of have the couple of days afterwards where you kind of just zone out and stare at the wall.
I really should be happy to see my family, but it doesn't feel like that at all.
I was happy to see Ernie. That was like a highlight. He was happy to see
dogs.
Ernie.
That's different. That's different. That goes without saying.
Yeah, I remember speaking to my friend / workmate before, and he goes, "Oh, you're away on Friday." He's like, "What's the go with that?" I said, "Oh, I'm doing stuff for the podcast and playing games all weekend." He's like, "Well, you'll be Rosie on Monday, won't you?" Because knowing that I was just going to be like a zombie. But thankfully, and I showed it to you guys. Thankfully, I got to visit a wildlife sanctuary on Monday morning for the first 2 lessons. That was very pleasant. We fed lots of marsupials and deer and stuff like that. But it was so good. I noticed you've got five guys in your chat, Mitch.
100%.
Guys.
Well, I thought, we're going to be talking about the highlights from PAX and the things that you enjoyed, probably because, that's obviously just last week, so we're all fresh in our mind. And what more of a highlight to cover off than visiting Five Guys?
Oh man, what a first! I've had so many firsts. I haven't been a virgin for a very long time. I'm a Five Guys virgin, PAX virgin. Oh, it's so awesome.
You made that joke this time, Dana, not me. So I won't get in trouble this time. But yeah, it's funny how we start to now have these traditions, right? So it happens for the first time, and then of course we met James last year, and he became known as Five Guys Guy.
Yep.
But we go around and we know him as James now, and he has his own podcast called One Man Clapping. But he's still Five Guys Guy. I'm like, hey, it's Five Guys Guy.
He'll always be Five Guys Guy.
And he even put up a post on our community at he must have been walking along South Bank, and it was 8 o'clock in the morning. It's like, I'm here early. Where's everyone else? It's But the pilgrimage down South Bank.
Yeah,
that's good time. And of course, I tried to make it a thing, but no one else really jumped aboard. You did, Mitch, with the Grimace Shake. I did get my Grimace Shake. You had the Grimace Shake. I was a little bit more impressed with the Grimace Shake than you were.
Well, I got robbed because they decided that apparently you don't need to fill the cup. I know it's going to sound like I'm, Michael Douglas out of Falling Down. They didn't fill the cup. I showed you, Connor, when I purchased it. Correct me if I'm wrong. Am I just being a grizzled old man? It was almost 3/4 full.
As a fellow large human, and those of you who have met both me and Mitch, we're larger than the average man. That was not enough to satiate one's need for a Grimace Shake. I think that's fair to say.
No.
Did they fill it up?
No. They handed it to me, and I looked at it and thought they've pressed the button for small when it's a medium or something like that. And I contemplated saying, "You can. I'll just wait until you fill it, and then you can give it back." And then I thought, it's some poor old 13-year-old who's just there making 35 cents an hour.
That surprises me. You're normally such a bugger. I'm really surprised you didn't say anything.
Do you know what? Do you know what I think the problem was, Mitch? Is most people who have lowered themselves to order a Grimace Shake don't forgo the whipped cream anyway, because it's I've already sunk to these depths, I might as well just get whipped cream. And
maybe that's it.
They just weren't ready for someone as health conscious as you to be like, no thanks, no whipped cream, I'll just have the Grimace Shake.
Sorry, is this a 7-Eleven thing or
McDonald's?
McDonald's. Oh, the little purple thing. Yeah. Gotcha. Right.
Correct. Not what she usually thinks of when she thinks of little purple things. But yes, it was flavor-wise, it was okay. It didn't quite live up to the Five Guys salted caramel and Biscoff milkshake that I had the day before, which was just phenomenal. And I think you were the same as me. I think I had Five Guys every day.
Did you?
I don't know if I had it. No, there's one night I didn't have it because we needed to get back for something. So I just ducked off but I definitely had it at least twice.
Right, well then I win because I had it 3 times.
You win. And you know what? I'll let you have that victory.
I only had it once. Where was the pilgrimage there?
It went from PAX all the way up, and you just weren't part of it. In fact, I remember there was one time we went that we all stopped on the walk to Five Guys and said, we'll wait here because Dana and Joe are just behind us. And then Joe arrived and we said, where's Dana? And he said, no, she's decided she doesn't want to come.
Oh, yeah, no, I couldn't be bothered. I was too tired. I had a donut instead.
Right. So you've only got yourself to blame for that.
Miss, can you imagine running our engines on just a donut? That's like trying to run a Mack truck on E10. It doesn't work.
I'd probably have a normal BMI by then if that's all I ate all day.
But the food actually was really, really good. Weren't you meant to be doing a review of all the food trucks?
I was going to do
PAX?
that as a dedication to Motor City Gameworks, to Matt Riddle and Adam Hill, who often talk about the food trucks that they have at their cons in the US. I thought that'd be cool if I get around and do a bit of review of all the food trucks that are available at PAX. However, I changed my mind on that when Joe came over and he showed me what could only be described as a pita bread that was only barely bigger than a Dorito, less than a handful of chips, and a spattering of what looked to be some sort of meat offcut.
There was the Greek place or whatever
that could not be described as anything other than an appetizer, and it cost him $30.
I don't think, like in honour of our former host Def, I don't think it's fair to refer that place as a Greek place because he would not, that would not fly on it.
Well, their primary service was robbing you. So I'm not entirely sure if that's what Greek cuisine is about.
That's more of an Irish thing, I think, is the robbing.
It's quite funny, really, because when we, on most days we set ourselves up in the tabletop area at some point. Normally you guys were playing Bristol or something. It was always right next to the lolly place, like right there. I don't know how much sugar you guys ate, but it was a lot.
Considerable amount, yeah. Yep.
I had a headache on Saturday, I think, from all the sugar I had.
Let's put it this way. Shares in sugarcane up there and your way up in North Queensland have gone up since we left PAX. I think it's fun. I think there's a bit of a history to that because the first time we went to PAX, we had our space where we were demoing games and showing games and stuff, and it was right near the lolly shop, and it's become kind of like a bit of a landmark. So when you're trying to find people and you're like, where are you guys? We're in the tabletop area. The tabletop area is so big that really doesn't give you much of an indication about where anyone is, and you could still take you a long time to find anyone. But if you can say we're just near the lolly shop, then it narrows it down to at least 10 or 20 tables. So I think it's quite good.
What we needed was like what Cherie had with the Catan flag. We need one of those with our symbol on it. And I said I'll wear a hat, like a light up hat or something, or like
the hat with the exclamation point on it.
Yeah, the quest that was good.
Yeah, something like that. Okay, here's a question. Next year, you guys have to go in a costume. What would you go as?
Pamela Anderson.
Yeah.
Mad boob problem by any chance?
I talked about this, so it's like because we've been playing a lot of Overwatch lately, and I said, maybe if I sort of work out a bit, like, get the ring in a decent shape, maybe I can go as like a Genji kind of weird, or like a Hanzo who wears like a sleeveless sort of gi type setup and things like that. Or I could go the other way and play as Roadhog, who's just this fat as, like, got this big gut hanging out. It's like, hey, I'm just cosplaying, man. I'm just going like it's part of it. So, yeah.
Was that a joke? Because I think everybody knows what you would go as.
What would I go as?
Harry and the Hendersons.
That's not a costume.
Absolutely.
It's just me.
As if you wouldn't.
Who would be my Hendersons? I'd just be Harry.
I could go as an old John Lithgow, no problem.
That's funny.
Yes.
All right. So this is actually a podcast about board games.
Which it's
not about events.
Not about what we did last weekend. But it kind of ties in because we did play games last weekend. So, I'm thinking you're probably going to spend a bit of time talking about PAX stuff. So let's kick off with you, Con. What did you get into?
What did I get into? Well, I actually... I'll wait because Dana's going to mention the sacred card game a bit later, I think, and I'd actually like to hear her thoughts on it, sort of being a bit of a newbie to it all. But we also played, and we mentioned it on the PAX podcast, Altered. We kind of mentioned it, didn't really go into it in heaps of detail. This is another trading card game, so a TCG, where you have starter decks, so you'll have a deck of cards that have a theme. In this trading card game, you actually get the deck and you get 3 separate heroes. And these heroes, they have an ability that kind of synergizes with the card type. And similar to other archetypes in Magic or Arcana, or trying to think of another one off the top of my head, there's been other ones as well, Flesh and Blood, where it's like, okay, the blue house, the blue clan, the blue whatever, they have a certain vibe about them. So Altered does have this as well. What it does have going for it, though, is rather than attacking your opponent, what you're doing is you're trying to win certain sections to move your hero and their familiar so that at any point they have landed on the same spot. So you kind of got this bar. So imagine that. So me and Dana are playing against each other. Dana's playing cards in her section. She needs to win either ground, water, or forest, like green. And each of the cards that you play in there will have values across any one of those three. So as long as you win that, as long as you have the highest score in a particular element, and they do have certain names, but the names sort of elude me as it is, then your character or your familiar will progress. And it kind of gets harder and harder. But the cool thing about this game is that each round, what happens is once you play a card, it ends up going into your reserve. So it never stays there. So even if you play a really big turn, and this might turn some people off, but I actually think it works as sort of an intro version of a trading card game, because you might play a really good turn and that feels really good and your character moves, but then the slate is wiped clean because then it goes back to your reserve. But it doesn't mean it's gone. It just means that you might have to pay that cost again to bring them back to your reserve, and then they can be played into any spot that you want. I think it's a really neat process, and it works, because if that was just to stay in that one area, it's kind of wasted, if that makes sense. It's like it's wasted on that side when you might really want it on the other side to move your pet, because maybe you want to move your hero 3 spots and then your pet 2 spots, and then sort of make sure that your opponent doesn't move anyone else on their side. Dana, what did you think of it? Because we played it against each other. I played it a couple of times on BGA, asking more questions about the product itself. But what did you think about the game?
Actually, I enjoyed it. I do not play head-to-head games, like 2-player head-to-head games really, or anything like that. So it was a new experience for me, and I was glad that I did it. It was quite difficult for me to get my head around initially because of the terminology, I think.
Sure, yeah.
There's certain things like tokens that go onto your cards and fleeting, things like that. And I found that a little bit challenging. But I had heard that this was like a TCG for board gamers. I had heard that. And I wonder if that's because of the little track that you're moving along and where you're meeting up into the middle. It makes it feel more board gamey.
That definitely plays a part in it. So you've got that whole board sense and playing to an area rather than playing to a specific area rather than just playing to a wide open space. So, for example, when we'll talk about Lorcana in a little bit, but in Lorcana, you play your cards and they stay there until they're eliminated, you get rid of them or whatever. So they're there forever until they get eliminated. You don't actually attack the opponent. Now, you can do things like remove a card. Dana, you effectively won because you were able to play a card that was eliminated, that one of my cards that then didn't do any damage to me per se, but it meant that you had the higher values in that area. And I think that also helps. So just on that, the advantage that I feel like I have over someone like yourself who hasn't played a lot of these games is a lot of these terminology, while they're different words, they mean the same thing across all games. So, for example, when you use the word exhaust, it means the same in Magic as tapped. But Magic the Gathering, Wizards of the Coast, they own the term. They trademark the term tapped. So other games will use things like exhaust, exert. But it means the same thing. And it's still the same concept of managing your hand, managing your mana. How much mana do I have to put out? And similar to Lorcana Altered, in order to have mana, it's called mana in Altered, you just play any card you want from your hand. You can play one and you just play it face down. Now, some cards will let you draw that back from your mana area, and you know what that card is. It's not random. You choose the card you want, and because of that, you might have duplicates of particular cards in your hand. So there's the choice then of, all right, do I put this card down because I can't afford it now, or do I hold it and then wait until I can afford it and it'll give me a really big turn? But by that point, my opponent might have an unassailable lead. The other thing that I think works really well with Altered is, unlike other trading card games and card battlers, whereas what turns people off a lot of the time is I will have this enormous turn that will go for 2 minutes of me playing this card, tapping this, playing another card, getting rid of a monster, doing damage, drawing more cards, playing another one. And it's just this like crazy next level that unless you're playing lots and often, you will get lost. In Altered, I do one action, that's it. And then it goes to Dana's turn. Dana has an action, that's it. It comes back to me. So while, there's a little bit of a disjointed flow in that you have a turn, I have a turn, you have a turn, I have a turn. There's none of this like, oh my God, Dana just had an enormous turn. I can't come back from this. This game's over. You always have that time to think. And it's and I think that's much more board gamey than card gamey. That's similar to, I'm going to take this action that will then set up something else in a subsequent action or even another turn. And you just keep taking action actions until you pass and can't go anymore. In some turns, because of the number of cards I have in my reserve and in my hand, I might have more actions than Dana. That's fine. It just means that I keep going until I'm done. But like I said, because you're not actively attacking the other player, because the board state changes each turn, I actually think this is a really good intro to lots of. If you're keen to try this model of game, I think this would be a really good example. I'm hoping to get a couple of starter packs soon. It is possible to play it on BGA. There isn't much deck customization. I believe it's just like you get the standard decks, maybe get to swap heroes out, but it's pretty stock standard. They are having their own digital form of the game where you can make deck lists and things like that. So when you get a card, you scan it, you can upload it to an account. So that's pretty cool. You can show off your collection. It's in the digital, whatever, in the digital space. So yeah, Altered, I think, is definitely going to have an uphill battle, especially with Volcana in the market, Magic being the juggernaut, all that type of stuff. But it does really have a point of difference. And I really enjoyed the game that we've done. While I was learning a little bit, I had played it before on BJ and learned the basic rules, and you were learning. It didn't seem overly long. What do you think in terms of?
No, it didn't. It didn't seem long at all. Yeah. And I actually enjoyed, back to your point before, I actually enjoyed having the separate turns. Even in terms of learning, just being able to take one action. It was much easier to learn that way. I didn't really, it is quite different, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I did do like an introduction to Lorcana as well. And the way that you pay for cards, like with mana in Altered, I thought it was better in Altered how your money, you exhaust it and eventually you're going to have to pass because you can't pay for any more cards. Whereas each turn, I think in Lorcana, it's just there all the time. Like you're not using it up, if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Well, no, in Lorcana you need to pay with the ink. So whether or not that's restored to you properly. But
it's sort of there. It doesn't, you're not tapping it to use it type thing, if that makes sense.
I believe that's what you do have to do. So I don't know if that was...
So I think Dana's been playing the game wrong. That's what it seems
really?
Yeah. Because that would sound incredibly broken to me, because it just means that you can... Yeah.
I don't even know what the hell I'm doing. That's it. I'm getting the rule book out.
I want to go to Dana's world where I can go to Five Guys and just go, here's my money. Look, here's a 50. I just put it back in my pocket. Give me a burger.
I don't know what the hell we're doing. Oh my God, Tristan from More Than Meeples. We learnt the game wrong. Oh my God! And now I've got all these starter decks. I probably don't even like the game.
She was just like, I love this. You've got so much money. It's like it's not tied at all. You can do whatever you want.
Oh my God, that's terrible. All right, relearn the game. There we go.
Well, that's good. Then we'll be able to talk about it in a second. Look, so that's Altered. I want to talk about a game we played, Mitch. We played all together. It was so much fun. We left it off I think we left it off both of the podcast episodes. Well,
it wasn't. It was the last day, wasn't it?
Was it the last day?
Yeah. It was Sunday night. I think because everyone was trying to wrap up before they flew out and catch flights and had to shoot off to the airport and so forth. If it's the game I think you're talking about.
Monica's.
Oh, no. It was the other one that's on your run sheet list that I was thinking.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, but Monica's at PAX. So, yeah, I've talked about Monica's a few times, and I love it. It's a phenomenal game. It's just great. Thinking about what to take with us when we went down there, and something that we could sort of have a big group play and with heaps of fun, and you could get a bit crazy with later in the evening when you maybe had your fill of heavy, thinky games. And so we cracked off a massive game of Monica's. How many? I think we had, was it 7 on each team?
7, like 7 on one. I can't remember, but yeah.
It was like we had 14 or 15, somewhere between like 14 to 16 people or something playing it. 7 or 8 people on each team. We almost used like half the deck. It was a big chunk of cards that we had to get through. It was a blast. It was hilarious. I think it was Team Joe versus Team Me, wasn't it? What was the captains we had set up?
That sounds about right, yeah. There wasn't any schoolyard bullying of first and last pick or anything like that. We're on two sides of the table. We split the table and just happen to have even numbers.
Yeah, well, I would have picked Joe last. But...
poor Joe.
He would have said worse about me. But yes, it was phenomenal. It was just great. We went through, for those of you who don't know, very quickly, it's essentially a game of charades with a twist where you're going through and you're kind of using different methods each round to get people to guess a series of clues. And it's hilarious because as you go through the rounds, it also becomes a memory game.
Yeah.
because you've seen the clues before, so you're trying to remember what ones haven't come out and guess them. Sometimes I think some folks even guessed before the person had given a clue just because they knew what was sort of still in the deck.
What is very funny about this game, and I'm sure it's been touched on before, is how even within the game itself, you develop these in-jokes. So it's almost like, oh, I laughed about that, and I'm going to work that into my one word or my charade or something like that. So even though it's not relevant to the card in particular, they still get it. So the one that was like buffalo. Someone, I think, just kind of like did a repeating symbol, and then they got it because it's like, oh yeah, I remember. Like we were laughing at the fact that it's repeated, and it was just the same word repeated. So if you were to do that without playing any of the previous rounds, where you have to give a clue and then like a sort of a 1 minute or a quick clue, and then the one word, and then so on and so forth. So I think it was like whatever the buffalo, whatever the first one was, then the second clue was repeated or something like that, and then that meant that you were able to do a symbol that meant to repeat, rather than trying to make yourself into a buffalo and say that I'm buffalo and buffalo and buffalo in buffalo. Like it actually made a lot of sense. So that's what I really enjoy about it, is the in-jokes that come in. And because we had so many people, it was almost like you always got different clues in each round, or different things in each round. So it made you think, oh, I can't just go with the same thing again, or I can't go with the same one again. So yeah, like as a party / filler / drinking game, it's very close to the top of the list for me.
Oh, 100%. It's so good. It always generates just laugh out loud moments. And it's not even like you try to make these things a highlight. They just evolve into that as the game goes along. I will warn anyone listening that there are some not safe for work cards in there that tend to get a little bit, or even some people who might turn something that's rather innocuous into something that should be not safe for work.
I learnt about some very interesting terms and their definitions.
I don't know if you walking down South Bank and going, has anyone heard of this part of the human anatomy before? And people walking past going, is this lady right? Like, what?
I've still never heard of it. Anyway, I must ask my husband about it.
If you know, you know. That's all.
Maybe you two could do a Patreon episode on it.
Yeah.
Well, hang on.
I'm learning a lot. It's hard being pure as the driven snow.
Righto.
Oh dear. All right. Well, Dana, what was something that jumped out for you over the last week of gaming?
Yeah, I actually wasn't going to talk about anything at PAX until the Sizzles. So I was lucky to be able to play a game called Unconscious Mind. You probably would have heard about this game because I think it's been on people's most anticipated list for 2 years from Kickstarter. It's by Fantasia Games, and it's all about psychology and Sigmund Freud. And it's got this box with this beautiful Vincent Dutrait and Andrew Bosley artwork. It's a real standout to look at. And I want to preface this by saying it was probably one of my most anticipated games as well. I think I've talked about it on the podcast before. And I'm a complete moron because it was just delivered, and I went to contact the person because I was in a group buy to say, oh, I'll come pick it up this week. And he said, I don't know what you're talking about. I was in the group buy, and he said, no, you weren't.
Oh, no.
So for some reason I had pledged I didn't actually even remember. That's how many Kickstarters obviously I've gotten on the go. But I had pledged, I checked my Kickstarter, and I had actually pledged and paid, but never filled out the punch manager.
Yeah, right.
So I've got 99 euros sitting there doing nothing. And so I never got the game. So hopefully I will maybe be able to do something, or maybe get a refund or something like that.
So are you talking to us today about a game that you didn't buy? Not only have you not played it, but you haven't.
I did play it. I am playing. I played someone else's, which is even more annoying because I want it myself.
I thought you were getting to the point where you were like, I was super keen to play it. Now I don't even have a copy, and I'm going to have to track one down.
I don't have a copy, but I played someone else's. Fortunately,
right? Okay.
And it was awful because when this happens, I want it to be shit. Excuse me.
Quack.
Quack.
And it wasn't, unfortunately. So,
Well, that would just make the anticipation of eventually getting it that much better, won't it?
I suppose it'll be very irritating if I have to pay for it again. But
Well, I'm
anyway.
sure if you reach out to the publishers, they'll see that you have your account there, and they'll probably.
Dana, as someone who is an absolute repeat offender of this, if you get in contact with them and then pay the shipping, they usually send it to you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, lovely.
Yeah.
So I mentioned it was gorgeous on the table. It's really stunning. The components are like a standout to me. And actually, it was interesting because I played like the all-in version, and the retail components were in the box as well. And actually, they're really good.
Yeah, right.
Like even the retail edition is great.
That's great because that's what you might end up with.
Yeah, so that's exactly right. I could end up with that. At the bargain price of €300.
Yeah.
I don't know if I mentioned about the theme. It's about psychoanalysis. You're supposed to be like a colleague or a supporter of Sigmund Freud, and believe it or not, they used to have. This is silly. I'm not really sure why I'm laughing, really, but anyway, it seemed funny to me. But they had Wednesday Psychological Society, and they used to meet up every Wednesday and talk about psychoanalysis. It sounds a bit lame, doesn't it?
What a dry. I've had morning tea at an old folks' home that sounds like more flavourful than those conversations. Like,
you're offending our psychological community, our psychiatrists and so forth.
I'm just filthy because there's no way my brain could operate at that level.
It sounds like an insurance seminar or something.
I'm the one being studied. That's the problem. They study my brain. I'm like, why? How is this man still alive? Like, what? And all the poor choices he's made.
I think the intricacies and nuances of human psychology are quite interesting. Can't think of anything more better to do with my Wednesday nights than sit around and analyse behaviours.
I'm kidding. I'm being very flippant. No, I'm not into yucking anyone's yum. It's definitely just not
different horses for different courses.
Yeah,
yes,
right.
You're right, but it does sound lame. Anyway.
That's a lame horse and a lame course.
It's a big, heavy euro. It reminds me of a Lacerda game. I had my hand on my head a lot, just sort of looking down at the board thinking, what the hell am I going to do? The teach was quite long. It was at least 45 minutes.
Wow. And
there was a lot in it. And in the end, we sort of just decided, let's just play the game and we'll figure out the rest as we go. I don't know if you guys find this, but I find the language in games make it difficult for me to learn the game. An example is like during the game, there's an action where you can publish a body of written work, and it's called a treatise, publishing a treatise. And just like having to pronounce this word all the time, saying I'm going to publish a treatise, and I could never remember how to pronounce it, I find that frustrating to me. I don't know. It's just the language is confusing. I had the same issue with Lacrimosa. I don't know if you've played that game before, but
I had exactly the same issue with Cerebria, the Inside Mind, through My Clash Games, because I think what they're doing, or they were at least with Cerebria, and I don't know if it's the same thing, but it sounds like it with Unconscious Mind, is they're making a really concerted effort to get you immersed in the game and the theme. So they go about labeling a deck of cards. So in Cerebria, they'd say, this is the emotions, or this is the, but then it's difficult from a learner's perspective to go, the instructions will say, play an emotion. And you go, what are emotions again? Oh, they're cards. And so you have to do this, you have to process this transition interpretation of what the thematic thing is into what it is in real life, which just adds another piece of, brain work onto it.
Exactly. That's exactly how I felt in this game. But when I think about it, the actual actions were very thematic. So it was just the language that was used. So it's primarily a worker placement and engine building game, which is a win-win for me. There are actually only 3 actions that you can do on your turn. And you wouldn't think that when you look at a picture of this game on the table. It's a table hog. There are like 3 different boards plus your player board. So it's a real table hog. You can only do 3 actions on your turn. You can place a worker, which in this case are like little speech bubbles. So I think that's why it's like a Lacerda. Lacerda tends to use these speech
bubbles. Yeah.
These speech bubbles. You've got a little ink pot that, depending on where you place your speech bubble, your little ink pot will rotate around this particular path, and at certain places it will activate rows or columns of tiles and become like your engine throughout the game. The other thing you can do is return workers, and you can either treat or cure a patient. That's it. But the combos in these turns will have you like zipping all over the different boards. And it was sort of like I was losing track almost of what I had done. I don't know. It wasn't too much, but certainly if you love combos and you love those really big turns, it's great for that.
I think there's an official term for that. That
I know. I'm waiting for it.
In board gaming, combo spasticity.
Combo spasticity.
That's night shift brain coming out.
That's when the combo's so good that your body goes into like
spaz.
Like that's what it is. Yeah.
That's even another level of combo tasticity.
Oh God. Yeah. But you'll be planning, you'll have to plan like 2 or 3 moves ahead. It was quite a lengthy game. We started at probably 1:30. We finished at 7:30. 2 players.
Wow.
That included the teach, by the way. So it was a lot of looking at the rule book. And I think it's one of those games where when you play it again very quickly afterwards, just to sort of cement the rules in your mind. It wouldn't surprise me if someone, whether it's me, because I am actually playing it again this weekend, it wouldn't surprise me if this is sizzled at some point down the track, because it's certainly a beautiful production, and I think it's done very well.
So, Big Heavy Euro, do you think it's potentially too big and heavy to take along to, say, like Wednesday night psychology group?
Probably.
Bummer.
Yeah. But I'm so glad that I got to play it, and I'll sort of report back after I play it again just to see, because sometimes, you know, when a game can be quite challenging to pick up the rules, get the best impression of it, you just need to play it again really quickly afterwards, so you feel like you've sort of got the hang of it, and it can really change what you think of it. But it's certainly beautiful.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, I know, like, obviously Freud is one of the most famous psychologists in history, because our friend Sarah has been working on a game that's been inspired by the life of this guy called Ignacy Semmelweis. And so I know, speaking to her, Sarah's working really hard to try and integrate the theme, but making it some sort of gameplay, and she's sort of muddled around with a few different things as well. And I'm wondering, like, does it still feel thematic? Because
yes.
So it'd be interesting. It'd be interesting sort of to play that and then see what Sarah's been working on and how it's sort of worked together.
I think it is. Yeah. I think it is very thematic. I think they've done it extremely well. But I have got another game. Can I talk about one more?
No. No, go ahead, Dana. Let's have it.
Okay. There was another game. This is what happens, and this is why it's always a danger for someone like me to invest in a TCG or something like that. I heard someone say that this game was really good and it's only available in Brazil. That just is like a light bulb moment to me. Oh, it's hard to get. I'm going to try and get it. So I did, and I'm talking about Comic Hunters by Spin Master Games. I ordered it. You can actually order it from Barnes & Noble over in the States, and they'll ship it to Australia. Anyway, this game is about amassing a comic book collection of your favourite Marvel heroes. It's a simple game. It's a family game. It plays 1 to 4 players in about an hour. It's divided into 3 rounds, and you're going to visit 4 locations over these 3 rounds. 3 locations in each round. So each round you're going to miss 1 location. At the end of the round, then everybody with the cards that they've managed to collect, they can place them into their collections, and you pay by using other cards to place into your collections. And then you'll start the next round. And at the end of the 3rd round, you'll go into end of game scoring. With the game, there are certain types of heroes that are determined to be the most valuable. And this changes from game to game. It's random. So, for example, Hulk might be determined as being more valuable in this game. So you'll want to collect more of those cards. So if you have 6 of Hulk cards, it'll be more valuable to you than collecting another type of Marvel hero. The locations that you visit all have different types of drafting actions, and this is the really great part of this game. There are 4 different locations. The first one is you can visit a store, and that's just a normal drafting. That is, you've got a hand of cards, take a card and then pass it to a neighbour, and then they'll take a card, and you'll just keep going until all the cards have been picked. The second location that you can visit is the flea market. So you've got a line of cards, and there are 4 lines of cards, and they have 2 cards in each. And in turn order, you're either going to make a choice to add a card to a row or take a row of cards. And when you take a row of cards, you're out. So it's a bit of a push your luck thing. You draw cards from the deck on your turn, and then you can add it to a row, passes on to the next person. So you're trying to make the decision, do I just take 2 cards, one of them is very valuable, or do I push my luck and keep going? Someone else might get that row, but I can potentially get up to 5 cards if I keep adding cards. The third thing you can do is go to auction. So you get 15 points. Everyone gets 15 points at the start of the game. There are 2 auctions, and you've got 4 rows of varying length, and you can bid just like in a normal auction using your 15 points. But you kind of don't want to spend all of them, because they're actually the money that you don't spend, or the points that you don't spend, are points at the end of the game. So you want to be careful to balance that with bidding on good cards versus just keeping the points for the end of the game. And then, which is my favorite one, is you can go to a convention, and it's like a slide puzzle. So you've got like a 5x5 grid, and it's got a hole in the middle, and you can move one card like a little slide puzzle, and then you can take any number of one particular hero in a row or column. And it actually becomes quite interesting as the grid develops more holes in it, about trying to get a card into the right spot so you can get a really good body of cards to draft. As I said, at the end of 3 rounds, where you've done 3 of those, you then go into end of game scoring. You'll be scoring different cards based on, first of all, how valuable the hero was, determined at the start of the game randomly. There's 3 tracks that will score based on various tags on certain heroes, which are very thematic for in terms of comic book, like whether it was a first edition or something like that. And actually the cards have real comic book art on them. So if that was something that appealed to you, I think people would really like the artwork on the cards.
I just had a look. It looks amazing. When you said it was Marvel heroes, I was like, how have I not heard about this if it's got Marvel IP on it?
Yeah,
Marvel IP usually blows up and goes gangbusters and is everywhere.
Well, that's right. And it was, as I said, it was only available in Brazil, and then Tom Vassell tried to arrange something to make it available in North America through Asmodee.
Dana misspoke because just the thought of Tom Vassell.
Oh, yeah.
What was that saying? Oh, the hat.
I know. I can't think. I'm flustered. I get flustered. Sorry. So I was talking about there's 3 tracks. So if you're furthest along on these tracks, you'll get more points. And then you also get points for the variety, so having the most most variety in your collection, not just collecting 1 or 2 different types. And that's the end of the game. It is very easy to pick up. It's actually a really, really good game. I just have one problem. The components are not good. They're not.
Really?
Yeah. The cards, you would definitely have to sleeve them.
Yeah, right.
And there are little tokens, like little scoring tokens. They're not significant. I'd probably just tend to replace it with something else, that I've got in my stash.
They looked a little bit on BGG. They looked a little bit like 3D printed.
Yeah, there are things on Etsy where people have 3D printed things. Yeah, and actually you can. There are on Thingiverse, there's 3D printed files. But I would recommend maybe replacing certain little parts. It's functional, it's fine, and I really enjoyed the game, and I don't recall playing anything quite like it. So it's nice and different. I really enjoyed it.
Cool. Next up, Con, there was a game that you and I got confused between earlier in the episode. Do you want to run us through that little one that we did play on the last day?
We did play. So it's sort of become, along with Five Guys, a tradition of not just PAX, but a lot of our game days and when we meet up. And that's Bristol 1350. Question marks. 1350, isn't it? It's not 1305. Anyway, whatever.
1350, I think.
1350. And so we've talked about this lots of times on the show. You are trying to escape Bristol in the time of the Black Plague. You are effectively kind of on teams, but not on teams. Your teams are what cart you are in, what apple cart you're in, trying to get out of Bristol. You go around rolling die. Hopefully you could roll apples instead of rats, because if you roll 2 or more rats, you will have a mingle. And in the 14th century, when people were mingling, that's when you got sick and sickness got carried around. So you have symptom cards. You always have 2, no more than 2. And if the value of your symptom cards either equals or exceeds 6, you are sick. And it doesn't matter if you get better, you are still sick until the end of the game. And if you and your merry band of cart mates can escape Bristol healthy within 1 turn of the first cart that escapes, then you win. But the crux of this is the lying, the backstabbery, the pushing out of carts. Of course, that's become sort of synonymous with PAX, with Greenie pushing Dan out of the cart last year and having to have his penance. And we had the honorary Dan and Greenie PAX Bristol game this year, and I came out victorious. Yes. Along with you, me, and Mark. It was Mark. It was Mark, myself, and Eric from Aftergame, as he's become known. Eric from Aftergame was Eric, and we were victorious, and we were healthy the whole time. But Eric made a really good play where I think Dan was in our cart, and I think he sort of caught on that Dan may be sick, so he didn't want to be in that cart anymore.
You don't have to talk to Dan for too long to realise he's sick.
But there's all this stuff, you can move and then stop people from moving by playing a whip. So it's like, hacha, get back, hacha, hacha. And, you can't get to move, and you want to keep sick people out of your cart. And because once you're sick, you kind of want to affect as many people as you can, because if no one gets out healthy, then all the sick people win, so on and so forth. Oh, it's fun. It's raucous.
It's a blast.
It's yelling.
We've played this game many times, and I can't think of a time that it hasn't been awesome fun.
Yep.
But I'm going to say something controversial here.
That's a surprise.
Yep. I like to walk the tightrope of controversy. This game doesn't really hit its peaks until someone gets pushed out of the cart. It's got to happen. So that's a warning to anyone who plays the game with me. If you're playing the game with me and we're about halfway through the game,
you're going to get pushed out
and no one's been pushed, then buckle up, because someone's going to. I don't care if you're sick or not. You're going out. It has to happen. I'll wear the death of shame that will accompany that push out, but it's going to happen. There's going to be pushing.
The funny thing that then happens, right? So say you push a healthy person out, you die of shame. Then you're left. Then there's one person in that cart trying to roll the dice, and so all these other people, if you're playing a full game of 9, these other carts are effectively, having all these people roll die and try and get their colours, because as long as your colour comes up, you move that many distances. It's just the apples are a healthy roll and a healthy move, as opposed to the rats who still move your cart, but then you have to mingle. Then it's like, well, this one person's trying to roll, let's say, the oak cart. So there's no oak die. So not only have they potentially gotten sick, they're left stranded. And then people want to jump into that cart and move and so on and so forth, because it could be then that person could be healthy.
He's only got one person who's going to potentially sick. Yeah.
And it's great fun. It's so good. Such a clever game, and the fact that it plays up to 9, and at no point does it feel like, I wish we had a couple of less people playing, because you're invested in every roll, because you can play something in there. If someone moves, you can whip them to keep them out. If someone, that you might, and we played with the coin, so there's a couple of variants where you can play where you can, in the base game, nobody starts sick, and you become sick effectively after the first mingle. I think the game's great when you start with someone that's sick. Now, people are like, well, then I can't win. Well, no, that's not true, because if you can then make everyone else sick and no one escapes healthy, the sick people win. So you could be one of multiple winners, and the healthy people are the losers. So then it becomes your priority then, all right, I've got to try and make as many people sick as possible. The only way that it can be a bit of a downer is, you're right, if you get pushed out, then you're out of the game. But there's no, aside from you staying and enjoying the hilarity that ensues, there's no reason for you to effectively hang around. You could go and do something else, check it in, go play a quick game with someone else. But yeah, always a classic fun. I think I still have a funny memory at South by Southwest where someone's watch, I was yelling so loud.
That's right.
Someone's watch said, "Are you in a loud environment? Please be careful of the number of decibels that's going on." I was roaring.
I think it was your watch.
Yeah, I think it was.
I have only played that game once, and that was at South by Southwest.
Yeah.
I don't have anybody to play it with here, even though I own a copy, but maybe if I could get family or something like that to play it. It's wonderful, actually, just watching you guys play it. It's really great. And it was great because I think we had a new Patreon playing it. So he probably
Jim jumped in and played.
Jimmy,
Yep.
Yeah, and so he seemed to really enjoy it. And it looks awesome. I reckon we should do like a PlayCon thing every year where we could do like a Bristol, tournament. I don't know, like a little Bristol session or something like that. Just with all the podcast members and stuff like that. It'd be really cool.
Let's do it next level. Let's get some boxes, paint them the colour of the cards, and we move along the track. And then if we actually push someone out, we can I think if I push Dana, that might be bad. But I would pretend to push Dana. Dana falls at the back, and then Dana's dead.
That is such a good idea, and that's our cosplay, man. That's our cosplay costume.
Who are you? I'm a sick person in the cedar cart. That cool cosplay.
Yeah, I'm inches from death of the Black Plague. Yeah. Great.
Cool, man.
Oh, that's funny.
If you want to buy the latest games, there's no better place than Advent Games. They have a huge selection of games with heaps of different categories like light and fun, Euro heavyweights, or hard to find games to help you find the best fit for your game night. On top of being a great bloke and an avid gamer himself, Dean provides excellent customer service, is very responsive to questions or inquiries, and offers flat rate shipping across Australia. So to grab your games, head to adventgames.com.au. That's adventgames.com.au.
So, thanks for that rundown on Bristol, Connor. We will move on now, though, to the sizzles. So, you are going to tell us about a new board game that's been ported over from a popular video game.
That's right. So I was lucky enough to get my hands on a copy of Dead Cells, which was kindly given to us by Let's Play Games. So thank you to LPG for that. This was on display and played at PAX. I saw it and I was like, I got to get a copy of this because I quite liked the video game. I'll give a quick rundown on the type of video game it is because it will make more sense when I explain the game. So there is this type of video game, and if you know about roguelites already, you can skip this part or whatever and ignore my butchering this. But effectively, what this type of game is a game where you start off with a very, very weak character and you're going to die. So your character is going to die or whatever, and then what happens is you progress your way through this dungeon, land, or whatever it is. There's heaps of different, you're trying to escape hell or trying to go through a dungeon or whatnot, and you die and you go back to the beginning. But each time you go through, you get a teensy tiny bit stronger or a teensy tiny bit, you unlock a little bit more. And what these games have started to do really well is they give you a little bit of story, and each time you die, there's a bit more story that comes out and so on. So this type of game is called a roguelite game, L-I-T-E, not L-I-G-T-H. So Dead Cells is this very, very popular video game that's a roguelite. What you do in this video game is you're trying to trying to move through these different lands, these different biomes, which they reference in the game. And each of these biomes has different characters. So in the board game, what you do is you're playing as what's known as a beheaded. And in the base game, and in the game that I've gotten, there's 4 different types of beheaded. There's the flayed, which I've played as a lot, the poisoned, the immolated, who is on fire, surprise, surprise, and the quartered. Each of them have a little bit of asymmetry and a little bit of difference with their deck. So this is a card game at heart, and it is a card battling game. But I'll get to the fighting and the battling in a second because I think it's really, really important. I won't bury the lead here. So I punched and had it ready to play by 2:00 the other day. And I didn't stop playing it until 9 o'clock that night. It was so good. I was so addicted. So going back to the game itself, the key things about these games is you have these short, sharp runs, and it has this feeling of, I'll just go one more time. I'll just play one more game of this. Oh, one more, because I guess give you a little tidbit. You unlock one new thing and you want to try and see how that works. And you want to try a different build. That's exactly what this game has. And it has it in a board game. So I'm always really, really conscious of when they try and take a video game where you've got a different type of engagement, right? It's constant movement. You're actually sort of involved in the battle. To dodge an attack, I physically have to dodge it. I have to, not me, myself, but on the joystick, on the controller, you have to dodge it. So how are they going to put this into a board game where it is an action game? You're attacking, you're swinging your sword and whatnot. So what they have is they have this battle system. And the beauty of this battle system is each battle, except for the bosses, which I'll get to in a sec, except for the bosses, only last 4 rounds. And you only ever play one card. So what happens is you and whoever else you're playing with, you will discuss when you have a battle, you will discuss what type of card you're going to play. So similar to Gloomhaven, where you're kind of alluding to what you're going to do, but you're not going to say the exact card that you're going to do. So you might take a loot action. I'm going to loot in round 3. I'm going to attack in round 1. I'm going to block in round 2 or whatever. So you're not actually telling people what card you're going to play, but you're alluding to the action that you're going to take. Or you might be taking 2 attacks in round 1 and round 3. So you play the card and then all of the rounds activate in subsequent order. So you start with round 0, which might be like a buff or might give you some protection or something like that. Then round 1 happens. So that's when attack. You resolve everything that happens in round 1. And then round 2 happens. Everything happens in round 2. Round 3 happens. Everything happens in round 3. And then sometimes there's a 4th round as well. Not all the time, but sometimes there's a 4th round. That's it. Done. Now, whether you have killed off the monster, survived the monster, or died will depend on what happens next. So the cool thing about this is that you can effectively evade or defend against a monster, and you're not stuck there for the rest of the game. It's done. You move on to the next section, because each time you defeat a monster, you might get a bonus from this. You might get some teeth, which is the currency to use in a run, or you might get something, a piece of equipment or whatever. You might also just go into the battle and loot, because the loot is the more precious item rather than defeating the enemy. So there's options for you to have. And the beauty is, like I said, you're playing one card. It's not like Gloomhaven where a battle might take you the entire session or things like that. And that's really important, because what that means is that you know that a run is not going to take you an hour. It might take you 5 or 10 minutes, because what's going to happen is your character will die. And that's okay, because when you die, this is where the game shines. It's going to sound crazy, but I get to a certain point in my run and I actually can't wait for my character to die, because when you die, you move into this section where you unlock different parts of the game. So what happens is you have this board called the mutation board, and this is how your character grows. So depending on what you've unlocked, and you don't know what you unlock, because what you then spend at this point is this currency called cells. And at the moment, what I have is each of my upgrades cost me 2 cells. Now, what I'm imagining will happen is as I go on, those upgrades are going to cost me more and more. And it's really well done, because you have these deck of cards. You have survival, brutality, and tactics. And the top card tells you how much this upgrade costs. So it costs you 2. And what you do is that when you pay for the upgrade, you slide the bottom card out from the bottom of the deck, and that's your upgrade. So it's all organized. You're not meant to shuffle these cards, these decks of cards. It just sits on top. You pay your 2 cells, so it's like you've gone to the shop, and you get your upgrade out. So depending on how you want to upgrade your character will depend on where you want to go. And you're allowed to chop and change the different upgrades in your mutation board. So you have this mutation board that's constant. Sometimes you'll upgrade a merchant. Sometimes your beheaded will be upgraded. Sometimes you'll get new cards to play. I've been playing it solo. So when you play it solo, and I was going to play it two-handed, but because of you're not supposed to discuss what you're going to play, I thought, all right, this is actually better to play it this way. But you can play it solo. You play with another character, a sort of a mini character called Serenade, which is kind of like this floating sword. And Serenade works fine. But I really do think that if you play this game with 2 or 3, it would be incredible. You can play it with 4, but there's this pass action that's a little bit, it's okay. I reckon it's better if everyone plays one card. Oh man, this game, like I said, like Dana's face was shocked when I said that I played for so long. It was so good. I just loved playing these quick runs, You get through to the end of a biome, which is a section. So for the first biome, it's the prisoner's quarters. Then you move to the toxic sewers, and then you have to fight a boss. And the first boss you fight, I haven't beaten the first boss yet. That's how hard it is. You play against what's called the concierge. And the concierge is a boss battle. And you've got to go through it, and then you die. And the rule book even says you will die. They said we'll be surprised if you get past the boss even after your fourth or fifth run against them. But this game, man, it is so good. I was excited, but dubious to be like, okay, how are they going to work in this roguelite type? Upgrading, dying, is it going to be fun to effectively do these small runs and die? It's so good because you get these cells, and I can't wait to see what I unlock next. I'm really looking forward to seeing where this game goes. It is so good. And it's so easy to then, if you're like, so let's say I'm done with it and I give it to yourselves. It's so easy to pack up and reset, and then you get to have the game from the very beginning. It's got the teensiest, tiniest hint of a legacy game, but you don't destroy cards. You trash them, but you just put them in a certain section, and then they're ordered. So what you do is you just put them back in the order they came in. I would then give the game to someone else, and they can play through it. But I'm honestly thinking the state that I've got the mutation board in now, it actually gives people a fair bit of choice. So once you then explain it, so if we ask people to sit down and play it, I think I could explain how this game worked in 5 minutes. And we could play. Because a lot of the stuff that you find, there's no point explaining it because you might not because it's random. The setup's random every time. Even though you're going through the prisoner's quarters, the tile that you put down is random anyway. I could explain this system, poison, blocking, or whatever. Until those cards come out, there's not much point.
Yeah, so it could be a total waste of time.
Yeah, it could be a total waste of time. It's like, no, we pick out beheaded, you pick these cards, explain how battle works so you know which cards to play and when.
And then off you go.
And then you just go.
I guess it also kind of like then teaches the game as you go, because as the tiles come out, you learn whatever that particular tile is, and then you add it on, which makes probably consuming it bit by bit easier.
Yep.
I did actually play a demo of this at PAX, but I don't know if you find this sometimes with demos. It's so short that I did not get what you're describing from the game that I played. Actually, we didn't get to do any upgrades or anything. The board sat there, but we didn't actually get to do anything. We just went on a run and got to a certain point, and he said, okay, that's the end of the demo.
Yeah.
And it didn't give me that vibe at all, but the way you're describing it sounds fantastic.
Time constraints and whatnot, I think they were down to half an hour. I would say that it's almost like if you were to have gotten over that half hour, Dana, and maybe played it for an hour, you wouldn't have wanted to stop because the hook would have been in. That whole thing of I get it now. I can see it. The matrix, the numbers, I can see it all. Like that, you go, right, okay, so this is why I would just loot instead of attacking the monster. Because I know that realistically I might get through one or two more encounters and then I'm probably gonna. When I play these roguelite games, sometimes I'll go on what I call just resource runs. So I'm not trying to get further than I ever have before. I'm just going through to search for a particular resource. And you can do that. You can actually do that by going, I just want some cells because I want to upgrade my character, rather than going through and trying to push further than the next point. It's very, very clever. So I should have mentioned at the top, it's made by Scorpion Mask, who have made lots of games, but in particular they made Zombie Kids and Zombie Teens. And I'd imagine that this is, and when they said they were making this, I was like, oh, this is a pretty big game. But, oh man, it's so good. I have really, really enjoyed it. I can't wait to see what else. I would love to play this with, like I said, another two people, because I think having that little conversation and then playing, like, yes, we got it right. Like, you read my mind, you understood what I was saying, and that would be a nice little game within it. Yeah, I have very much enjoyed it. It's still set up on my table right now. I'm definitely going to have it there. I haven't wanted to go back and play a game as much as I want to go play this since I first played Too Many Bones. Now, I'm not saying they're different types of games. I'm not saying one's as good or whatever, but it was that same vibe of I can't wait to try this out. I can't wait to see that. And like I said, the beauty is that you're allowed to swap and change your mutations, the cards in your hand, to try and give it a bit more synergy so that your run can go further. And that's what I love about these types of video games. And they have absolutely nailed it with the board game.
Nice.
Oh yeah, this is it's so good. I am surprised that there has been some comments about the rule book. So the rule book sort of copped a little bit of heat. It's okay. It's fine. And I guess I am surprised they haven't built in, like lots of games do, where you open it up and there's a demo ready to go. I don't know if you've played campaign games like that before, where it's effectively, you open it
like
up
a
and
tutorial.
like a tutorial that's built in, because of the effort they've put into staggering the cards so that the weaker ones are down the bottom, and they've obviously balanced in a particular way, and with the enemies and things like that. I would have thought that maybe if it goes to a second printing or whatever, or they have a version, that they might do that. But for me, yeah, like it's nailed the brief, I think, is what Dan would say.
Alrighty. Cool. So that's Dead Cells by Scorpion Mask. I think I'll jump in next and just talk about a little game which was the highlight of my PAX, and as such, probably the most enjoyable game that I've played in the last little while. It's unfortunately not available yet. It was in the collaboratory, so it was a game that is still being worked on and developed by a designer by the name of Chris Anthony. Chris actually won the Best in Show award for this game, and it's a little 2-player bluffing kind of deception deduction game called Tropical. And I think we all had a crack at this when we were at PAX. The way that the game works is you essentially get a hand of cards. The cards are different fruits. Well, the version that I played was. The different fruits will score you different amounts at the end of the game, and you're trying to then collect these cards in order to score points off them. But each of the different fruits will score in different ways. It kind of reminded me a little bit of Sushi Go, the way you'll collect, like some will score if you collect this certain type. Some will score based on the more you collect. Some will score based on whether you have the most, more than your opponent, or the least out of your other opponents. So each card had a different sort of scoring mechanism. So there's different strategies you're employing when you're collecting these cards, whether you want to collect as many as you can. I found out with one particular, I think it was the coconut, that it will score you more points the more you collect, but then once you go past, I think it was 5, it actually drops. So you wanted to get as many as you could, up to 5, but no more than 5. So, there was nice little nuance in the different ways that each of the different fruits scored. And some of the fruits were negative as well, so you would actually lose points for them. The beauty of this game then comes in when it's your turn, you have your set of cards. I think it was 5 to start with. You have to choose 3 cards to play, and you play them into 2 separate piles. So a pile of 1 card and a pile of 2 cards. And you choose to place one of those cards face down and 2 face up. And you can mix that combination up, whether you put the 1 by itself face up or whatever it may be. But ultimately, you're showing your opponent 3 cards in 2 different piles, and they then have to choose which stack they're going to take, whether they take the stack of 2 or whether they take the stack of 1. And those, whichever they choose, goes into their collected cards that they will then score at the end of the game. And whatever they don't choose comes back to you as the person who played the cards, and that goes into your stack. The card that you play face down then becomes this bluffing back and forth between, have they played a negative card because they're trying to stitch me up with negative points or something that's going to work against me? Or have they played something good in the hope that I won't choose the card, I don't know what it is, and then they'll get it back again? So it becomes this kind of back and forth double bluff about what cards is essentially hidden, and whether it's more beneficial for them or you, if it's their turn, to choose the face down card and get 2 of them, or the 1 card that's face up, or how it may work out. It's super simple. It's really easy and quick to play. Just that decision space, and that, I think it's one of the most enjoyable kind of hidden information bluffing games I've played in a long time, because it's just so smooth. For the record, I played against Joe, and the first hand I was like, he's totally got me, and it sort of the penny dropped, and I realized what was going on, and he obliterated me. He had my number at every turn. He knew exactly what I was doing when. Maybe I caught him out a couple of times, but ultimately he wiped the floor with me, and I still loved it. I still thought it was great. And I think if you can play a game that you get absolutely blitzed in, and clearly Joe picked up the concept quicker than I did, which put me behind the 8 ball straight away. But I still come out going, that was super fun, even though I think he doubled my score, or maybe even more. Yeah, it was just, I think it's done really well. One of those games that simple mechanics, easy to play, and yet so much depth in the decision space. Yeah, I know you two guys, you both played it. Did you play?
Yeah,
you didn't play Conor?
Yeah, I played it. I played it against Harry, actually.
Right, okay.
And he wiped the floor with me. It was so interesting, the mind games and trying to suss out your opponent. It actually reminded me of a game called Hanamakoji, That's what it reminded me of. This is the kind of game that I would love to have in my handbag all the time.
Yeah.
I would just have it in my handbag. You could just knock it out at a cafe or whatever. I really enjoyed it.
So you didn't get a good chance to have a go, Connor?
No, it's like my regret of PAX was not having, because Chris was just flat out teaching this or showing people Guildmaster and then we did get to play Prize Fighter, which is this other sort of 2-player bluffing game as well. So it's kind of got a similar DNA. And I can't remember who had the prototype. And even though I knew he was still sort of playtesting it or showing it off, I was like, where did you get a copy of that game to these two people? They go, no, it's Chris's prototype. And I was like, oh. And then I saw him. I said, Chris, I wanted to buy a Tropical. What's the go, man? He's like, see if you can get it published for me. So, hey, any game published, pick this game up so I can buy it because I want to buy this game. It looks so fun. And everyone who played it was like, man, Tropical is sick. It's so good. And I know that he has run playtests on other servers as well, on the playtest servers, and people are like, this is so good. This is so clever. So, it's like you said, it's 2-player. You can generally find another player. It's not a overly complicated. Like you said, it's a bluffing game, and people can. But the cool thing with bluffing games is that just because you're not a good liar doesn't mean you're not good at them. Because people were like, "You're lying." It's like, no, I'm not lying. Like, here we go. Like, and then they start second guessing themselves to know, like, maybe they are a good liar, but they're pretending they're not a good liar. I don't know. And then you've won.
But it's also even like, I know my wife, for example, she hates bluffing games because she doesn't lie very well, right? And she just doesn't sit well with her. So like we play cockroach poker and she can't stand it. She gets out straight away. She won't look at her cards. She guesses. She bluffs herself because she doesn't like knowing that she's lying to someone else. But this is not. I don't think you really need a poker face, or you don't really need sort of bluffing skills, because the sum total of bluffing is, well, there's a face down card. I don't need to be a poker face. The card's going to do the bluffing for me. So it kind of lets you off the hook from that perspective. I think it's just phenomenal. If there are publishers out there and you're looking to kill it with a great game, get in touch with Chris, because this game is going to go gangbusters, I reckon. Unfortunately, guys, it's not available yet, but keep your eye out for Tropical, because when it does hit, it's a great one to pick up. Dana, that leaves you on the Sizzling on the Hot Plate. What do you got for us?
We are on an island. You guys are lost, and I'm responsible for getting you off the island.
So
and
we're absolutely fudged. That's okay.
So we're dead.
And I can only use one word at a time.
So I got a better chance of getting out of Bristol with the plague than...
So, of course, I'm talking about landmarks. And actually, Let's Play Games provided us with a copy of this game, and it plays 2 to 10. Before I actually got to play this game, which I played at PAX, I was taught at PAX, I did hear that this game was a Codenames killer, and I'm always wary when people say that. But it's sort of got more of a likeness maybe to So Clover as well. It's got a bit of So Clover in there where it's very cooperative. So you start with a cloth map, and it's printed on it. It's got an island shape full of blank hexes, and you have one person who's allocated as the pathfinder, and then the rest of the people in the group will be allocated as the party, and the pathfinder needs to direct the party off the island. So the idea is that you're lost, and all you have is a walkie-talkie with low batteries, which it sort of explains why you can only say one word. So at the start of the game, the pathfinder has 7 blank dry erase tiles and a card with a map of the island that the rest of the party cannot see. And it shows where the party is, and it'll also show other icons on different hexes. It'll show where there's treasure, water, and then but there are also other dangers lurking on this island. So you'll start with 3 words that are provided to you. Like an example on a card that I was looking at today had the words swamp, fence, and bubble. So the pathfinder will write those words on 3 tiles and place them where the card says the starting tiles are to go. And now the pathfinder will decide on a path to ultimately get the team or the party to the exit, but you would like to, if you can, get some treasures along the way. you either, in this game, you either all win or you all lose. So that's sort of why it's a bit so cloverish, I think. So, for example, the Pathfinder might be trying to get the party to go to the hex tile that's next to the word swamp. So you might choose a tile and write the word bogged or muddy. And then the party will decide amongst themselves where they want to place the tile. And so the hexes that are available to you on the map are safe spaces, which are clear, nothing happens. There are water spaces. So if your team places a tile onto a water space, the Pathfinder will get some additional tiles because you only start with 7 and you can't take any more tiles than that. So if you happen to be a fair way away from the exit, or you're trying to get treasures, you will need more than 7 tiles. So you're going to need to get to water. So let's say, for example, the Pathfinder only has 3 tiles left and the party decide to put their next tile onto a water spot. They don't know it's a water spot, but they happen to put their tile onto a water spot. Then the Pathfinder can draw back up to 7 tiles. So it just buys you time. Then there are trap spaces. So trap spaces, if the party place a tile onto a trap space, it will reduce your tile limit. There's quite a few trap spaces on the map, and eventually you might have a tile limit of 4. So you'll only ever be able to draw up to 4, which is going to limit how well you are going to be able to get off the island. Then there are curse spaces. So curse spaces will prevent you from going to the exit. You cannot go to the exit if you are cursed. You must instead get an amulet to heal you. There's only one amulet on the board. So, but there are multiple curse spaces. So if you get cursed twice, you're going to lose the game. You can't exit. And of course, the curse spaces and the amulet are a fair way away. So this is going to force you to get more water and it's going to send you on quite a journey. It's actually a really interesting, almost like push your luck game. And now I played this with some of the Board Game Barbecue members and I think we played with some Patreons as well. And it was quite interesting because we actually sort of pushed our luck and tried to explore as much of the island as possible. Joe was the clue giver and he was fairly confident. And we actually did really well and almost had covered the entire map with the exception of various trap spaces and curses. We'd almost covered the whole island with tiles and managed to get all the treasures before we left. So you can decide to just go straight for the exit, but it's not really in the spirit of the game to do that. You kind of want to try and get the treasure. It's also quite funny because you're going to end up at times having to link, like code names, having to link 2 or 3 words, not just one word, because they're hexes and they're going to be joining up together. And towards the end of the game, spaces are going to get tight. So you have to kind of be mindful about what clues you give because you could end up with trying to come up with a word that links oyster and Pope or something like that. And you're going, what the hell am I going to write here to try and get
Pope Kilpatrick? No? Is there a Pope?
Well, you can only use one word.
Yeah. Kilpatrick.
But how will they know to put it next to Pope?
No, that's what I'm saying. Was there a Pope Kilpatrick?
Was there a Pope Kilpatrick? Don't know.
No, I don't think so. So you can really screw yourself if you're not careful with the types of clues that you give. It's a really, really great game. And I think it feels more exciting to me than code names. I always feel like I can never, like I'm always trying to push that, trying to link 3 words in one go. But I'm always trying to avoid the spies.
The assassin.
Or the assassin. That's it, the assassin.
Yeah.
And it feels very negative. I don't think this feels negative. This feels, and even when you get something wrong, you still feel like there's hope. It gives me a good feeling. I don't know, code names, as I said, I just feel dumb. So maybe that's a me problem. So there are different modes in the game. We played on easy mode. That will just give you less trap spaces, more vacant or safe spaces. But then there's a second level up, and that will fill the map out a little bit more with traps and curses and things like that. The words that you start with are a little bit more difficult, but there's actually a team mode as well. So that's sort of more like, to me, the Codenames variant, where it's the first team to get 4 treasures. So that could be interesting. I've never played that before. I think I'd give it a go, but I'd probably generally play it as a cooperative game. This game was extremely popular at PAX, like out of the games that we demoed, along with Things in Rings, which I think has already been sizzled before.
That game, Things in Rings, makes me feel dumb. I can't get that. I can look at that game and just go, I just don't know what's going on.
Oh, man, that was so funny watching you. You just literally had no idea.
Nothing.
But anyway, back onto Landmarks. It's an awesome game, and I don't think that you would come across quite so dumb in this game.
Well, to that point, I also did play Landmarks, and Big Dog was there with me as well. We had a crack at it at the demo booth, and I enjoyed it. I think we played it with a couple of just random punters, right?
Yes,
a couple of guys that we rocked up with.
We thought we were in the right place, but they were sort of learning the game over another table, and we were just like, right. We're here, and so we kind of had. I was very grateful that the other people came and kind of taught us as we went along, and it was fairly easy to pick up. Yeah, I kind of got that Codenames So Clover vibe, because I was like, well, they would obviously use one word that could be linking to those two, and I don't know if the other people kind of got that, because if you weren't used to, they're like, no, it could only be for that. And I think things like we had like a lake and something else, and he's the guy, I forgot his name. He's like Michigan, and I was like, well, that's clearly that one. Oh no, it could go up there. I was like, but I wasn't going to, like you with the Grimace Shake, I wasn't going to start arguing with some random punter over where a tile should go. So
it's pretty hard. It's pretty hard playing these types of games with strangers, though, isn't it? Don't you think? I find it because you've got different. I don't know, different ways of doing things.
Different thought processes and different ways of thinking.
It is, but also I'm more likely to continue being cop how much of a moron I am from you guys, and some random guys like, well, that guy was dumb. Hope I don't ever see him again.
It's big though.
I want to say it to his face.
But no, I enjoyed it. I thought it was good. I think it's. I'm gonna disagree with you, Dana. I don't think it's a Codenames killer. I think they can coexist. Like I enjoy Codenames, and I actually play Codenames Duet quite often with my daughter. We enjoy that one. And although they have similarities, I think they have enough differences to warrant sort of both having a spot in the hobby or in your collection. So I can definitely see the similarities, but I don't think one would eliminate the need to have the other necessarily. But I can see where people are coming from. But yes, Landmarks is very good. I thought it was. I actually contemplated grabbing a copy at PAX, and then thought, oh no, I don't know if I'd get a group to play it enough. And ever since, I've been like, maybe I should have grabbed one anyway.
So awesome. It's Landmarks.
Cool.
Transform your gaming experience with the Table Flippers. The Table Flippers specialise in handcrafted custom game tables that turn your living space into the ultimate gaming arena. Designed for style and functionality, their tables are guaranteed to elevate your game night. Visit thetableflippers.com.au to explore their stunning designs and to order your premium game table today.
All right. Well, that brings us to the end of our sizzles for the day, and we'll move on to the news and announcements section, as we typically do. And we have coming up very soon the Sydney Barbecue Game Day, which is going to be on the 2nd of November at our regular haunt of Castle Hill RSL Club. I believe, I don't know if I'm throwing this out there, I believe Connor's going to be coming up for the visit. I don't know if that's locked in yet. Maybe we'll keep it as a surprise. But
yes, sure. This gives people the time to less likely buy a ticket because I'm there.
That's
more,
right.
More likely cancel their ticket because I am there. So let's let people have a chance to. Oh God, the dumb guy's back. I'm not playing landmarks with that guy. So yes, no, I'll be there. I'm making the trip up. So
Excellent.
Should be a good day.
So if you haven't got your tickets yet, get along to Eventbrite and do that ASAP because the event will sell out and you'll be disappointed if you miss out. Dana, I believe you guys up in Brisbane are also putting in the hard yards to
16th
organise.
of November. Yeah, big game day. This one's going to be bigger than the last one. We've got a few mega games happening and maybe a few different games that maybe you wouldn't normally expect. So stay tuned.
Cool. And, of course, we have the reminder, as we always do, to save the date for PlayCon on the 11th to the 13th of July 2025. We've actually done some new announcements, released some info on PlayCon this week. If you are on any of our socials, you may have seen that the T-shirt design for PlayCon, the PlayCon charity shirt, which this year has been designed by Sam Phillips, has been posted. And I got to say, it's wicked sick. It's awesome.
It is.
It's fantastic. It's brilliant. I love it.
Absolute fire. It is so good.
It's awesome. I'm not going to say what it is because you're all going to have to go and log onto our socials and find the posts and check it out for yourself. But just to say that your mind will be blown. It's phenomenal.
I would say, make sure you got a napkin to sort of mop up the drool. Because
it's fantastic.
All right, so there are all our news sections, which means we will move on to our next segment, Question of the Pod. So, Question of the Pod for our last episode, which was a few weeks ago now because it was pre-PAX, was how do you feel about real-time games? Before we go on to any other answers, I'm going to chuck my 2 cents within here. They stink. All right.
You love Paku Paku. You love that. I've seen you play it.
Yeah, that's not too bad, that one, because it's just silly fun. But I wouldn't say I love it. It's okay. But I don't do well with stress and pressure like that. Like when I've got games where I'm watching the timer tick down and I'm like, oh God. And I'm slow. I'm only...
Yes, that's very true.
I'm only 13 IQ points ahead of Dana, and that puts me on the bottom of the scale.
I'm no match for you, honestly.
But that puts me at the bottom of the scale. And so when there's a game where you've got to think about something first and react to it quickly, I'm like, I'm last. I can't do this. So I don't know. The added stress of real-time games kind of gets me a little bit. So I'm not a huge fan. Have you guys chimed in on this one? This
was on our last episode. So.
Yeah, it was on our last. Yeah, me too.
Fair enough. All right, we'll jump straight then to the community answers. Connor, do you want to read out some of the responses we've seen?
Yes, I will. And I'll make sure I won't invite either of you to my Wednesday night psychology group either if you can't keep up. So Henry Geerlings says, showing up on time is perhaps the only real-time game we play at game night, and our group is horrible at it. You would not be the only one, Henry. Narelle Williams says, too stressful, usually, and that kind of ties into what you were saying, Mitch. Cindy Sue, not a fan, really. We have one game, Restaurant Rivals, which we really enjoy, but we remove the real-time element that's in one phase of the game as it's too messy and chaotic and hectic, which I know is the point of it, but I think only Australians would know how to do that last bit. So for those who aren't from our lovely nation, that's a thing that we do. One Man Clapping says, Paku Paku is an absolute house fave. Going with what Mitch's thoughts were. Shane Murray says, I don't mind real-time games. It's just another style of game to enjoy. Kites is quite fun. Ready, Set, Bet is a blast. Ricochet Robots is probably my favourite and holds a special place for me, as it was one of the first games I played and had to import it from a German bookshop due to being out of print and the designer sadly passed away. Daniel Lewis says, with most game mechanics, it really depends on who you play with. The easy it is to implement is also very important. Well done. We love them. Rush Out, Kitchen Rush, Rush Out, Kitchen Rush, Rush MD, but poorly done, and no matter what you play would always end up poking out an eye, deliberate or not. So Daniel is a content creator, says, I recall a stream where we did where Kate showed off her exuberance, flicking the dice wildly off the table. Yes, that is something that could happen. Then we had Wordigen said, I like the idea of them, but they usually don't work for me or the people I play with due to the chaos that it usually is. And YGK.Game Night says, I love them, but with kids, cats, and every manner of distraction, they aren't my favourite to play. Done, over to you.
So from Discord, TJ Carnival says they can be really fun with the right group, but they can be an absolute punish with the wrong group. So true. Kids is honestly like magic maze with kids.
Yeah.
And that bloody red thing that is meant to be that, you know, they bang it on the table as if you're saying, come on, don't you know this? It's awful. Anyway, we got rid of that game pretty
the
quickly.
wrong group for Magic Maze for me is any with humans in it.
So we get Ernie, Frankie, BQ, and Vinny, and then you'll be right.
It'd be much more fun. Be much more fun.
Jim says real-time games for me are fun to play, but I honestly only grab them as a bit of a time filler. I'll play them at the end of a game night or if I'm waiting for others to finish their current game so we can start something else together. TN0027, echoing everyone else's sentiments, real-time games is such a love it or hate it type of genre. For me, I enjoy the pressure of it and having to operate under stress, but I've played plenty of real-time games where people just mentally collapse as soon as the clock starts.
I'll just quickly jump in. So TN, I believe, has made a couple of real-time card games where you play a card on top of the other, and I quite liked what he did with them. That was quite fun. So apologies if that's not, I believe it is TN, who I met at PAX.
Haig says, depends on the game. Real-time as a group are fantastic. Games like XCOM, Captain Sonar, and even 5 Minute Dungeon makes the game a challenge. Versus board games, though, it can cause massive disparity and can make games totally unbalanced if someone is a very quick thinker and another player needs more time to examine their options.
Amen, brother. Amen.
Yeah.
He knows where I'm coming from.
Yeah, but look, Captain Sonar, I did talk about in the pod a couple of weeks ago, is an amazing experience, and you can't play it any other way. It's got to be done that way. So it's worthwhile. Showatan says, I'm not counting games like Codenames or Decrypto as real time, although technically I should. So with the exclusions in mind, I detest the idea of a real-time game outside of something like Galaxy Trucker, where screwing up under pressure is part of the game. Game days for me are few and far between, and outside of a short, raucous experience of laughing at each other, I want to relax and enjoy my time with friends. Work is stress enough. I don't need that in my games.
Good point.
Yeah.
I've had a fair bit of stress in work over the last week, so I can definitely relate to that.
What about Fit to Print? I mean, that's got a little real time in it.
Yeah.
But it's not. But it's still puzzly and no. I'm seeing screwed up faces.
Yeah. Maybe you need to wipe your glasses. But we'll move on to the next question of the pod, which we've determined. I think this is appropriate for the discussion that's been had so far on the podcast today. And that question is, what games make you feel dumb? And why are you this way? I don't think why are we this way? I think why are those games that way?
Why are you this way?
I'll put that in there.
Who put that in?
I did. No, you have to. So, why? Why are the games? Like, what is it about the game that doesn't click with you? So, you mentioned Things and Rings, Mitch. Mm-hmm. I remember I sat there and everyone else got the clue, and I couldn't get it. Yeah, and I felt like the biggest dummy. And the only issue is I walk around feeling like the biggest dummy, but then now everyone knew that I was the biggest dummy because I'm the one that couldn't get the clue. So it's like, what are you, a moron? Like, it's I guess the other types of games for me are it's not necessarily a type of game, but how quickly some people can analyze the game only playing it once. Kind of like what you're saying about with Joe and Tropical, like how quickly they pick it up. And it's like, should I be celebrating this person for being such an intellectual and such a quick thinker, or should I be berating myself lacking in something. So yeah, it's just that type of situation. There's not so much one type of game, but it's a situation you find yourself in where it's like, oh, they picked it up so quickly. Why can't I?
Can I give you a third option? The third option is berate them for being better than you.
I'm not one.
I go with that.
I'm not one to belittle smarter people than me. We must lift the floor to raise the ceiling. That's what.
Right. Okay. Right. Fair enough. So there you go. So Dana and I have both said, what games make us feel dumb. Specifically in terms of games, what have you guys got? I mean, I've called out things in rings. I'll think of some others that make me feel dumb because there's definitely more. But what other ones?
Anything with an auction mechanic, or anything like that. Anything to do with spending money, like QE is another one where
like Lorcana, where you actually have to spend money.
This is the thing. This is the thing. I am not good with money. I'm in the wrong hobby. I'm not good with money, and you can see that with all these starter decks behind me and Lorcana stuff or whatever. But like QE, there's no limit to what you can bid. So like if you're the first person, you could bid 10 million or $1, and there's nothing. I've got nothing. There's just nothing in my head when that happens. Like I've got no clue when it comes to bidding on things. No idea at all.
What about you, Con? What game must make you feel dumb?
I think it's because I haven't played a lot of them, but so those 18xx games where you're working with stocks, it's like how do I value the stock? When do I choose to pay out? When do I choose to give back dividends and things like that? Mostly because there's no way in my right mind I would try and play the stock market like in real life. So that whole thing is just foreign to me. Whereas, I've played these games with Def, I've played them with Adrian and Harry, and they're just like, yeah, do this, do that. And they're running 2 or 3 companies at one time, and I'm still with my one, making Spalding balls. Like it's they're creating tech that's changing the world, and I'm just sitting there. But yeah, so that whole concept, that definitely makes me feel dumb when I'm playing with people who have played those games a lot, because they understand the nuances a lot more than I do, and when and where to make those changes. And I think it also then ends up with a big gulf of scores. So, they're very unforgiving. So that doesn't help as well. They're good games, and I appreciate them in totality, but I'm not.
The problem is as well, if you do feel dumb and they're a long game, that's a lot of feeling dumb.
It's a long time
to lose interest. I struggle. I feel dumb with games where it's imperative that you plan turns in advance. I seem to struggle with the ability to sort of see things holistically and in the future. Where there's games that if you don't have 3 and 4 turns at least scheduled out and planned and what you want to do, then you're going to struggle in terms of the efficiency puzzle. So I'm really about just think about what you need to do now and worry about the next turn when it comes. And one game that I'm going to throw out there that I just have never been able to get my head around and understand it properly, that I'm going to let everyone know about so they can laugh at me. It's A Wonderful World, which is a pretty simple game, but I just can't seem to put it together to go, well, this is obviously a card I need to draft, because then I'm going to have that to buy this, because you spend the cards to get the resource things and whatever else. I just cannot put that puzzle together in my head and map it all out. And it's just, I bounced off that game really hard. All right, so that's our question of the pod for next week, which is going to be what games make you feel dumb. So lay it out there. Don't be shy. Tell us about all of your shortcomings, and we'll discuss it in the socials. Get onto our Discord, get onto our Facebook, and we will read out the best answers next week. Next point of call is to shout out to Mark Phillips, who is a newly minted Patreon. Hooray for Mark! Thanks for jumping on board, Mark. Welcome to the team.
Yay.
And we really appreciate your support. And hopefully we'll get to catch up with you at some point at one of our either in person or online event in the future. Which brings me to the point to say that if you wanted to support us on Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/boardgamebarbecue and donate there. If you don't want to support us, that is entirely okay. You can do it via three free methods. You can go onto Facebook, you can go onto Discord, or you can go onto Twitter and follow us, or you can just tell your friends about the podcast and the game days and how much you enjoy it. And being part of the community is what I think is the most rewarding part of what we do. I didn't say it before when we talked about PAX, but I think we always come back from those things just really relishing the ability to catch up with people and meet the people that we maybe met online, play games with people from the community, and it's just a really great thing to be a part of. So check out all those things, get along and do that, and thank you so much for everybody who supports us in whatever way you do. And that brings us to the last segment of the show, our Fired Up segment, where we talk about things that we've got coming up that we're excited about and what's going on the day after today. So, Dana, first cab off the rank.
Well, it's obviously Lucana, isn't it?
Is it obvious?
Okay. How did I get into this? I said while I was there at PAX, I said I'm not getting into that. That would not be good for me. I have an addictive personality. I'm not going to get into it. And so I went to the stand on the Sunday to buy something for someone else because there was a limit of things to buy. And so I went there to buy something for someone else, and then you're standing there and it's like the checkout, like you see all the chocolates and whatnot. And I came out with starter decks and oh my God, and ended up going into the learn to play area and moved on to the big boy section where if you bought a starter deck, you could play with your starter deck. And clearly I didn't pick up on the rules because I've been playing it wrong anyway. But I am really excited about this game, really enjoyed playing it. And I'm not just saying it's not about necessarily collecting the cards, but of course that's part of it. I'll just let you know that Tristan at my work, who helps run More Than Meeples, buys like a packet, like a little booster pack every day. And we sit there together and he opens it up. We look at what we get. It's gambling, isn't it? It's really just gambling. But anyway,
pretty much.
Anyway, I really enjoyed the game, but I do believe once you get past the starter deck and maybe manage to curate your deck and things like that, that it will be a little bit more interesting. Yeah. But I really, really enjoyed this game.
Awesome. Well, I don't think you're the only one. There was a hell of a lot of people at that booth at PAX. I know Jonathan from our community's right into it. Dan's getting right into it. 80's pretty much into it, I think. So, yeah, it looks like it's going to be a biggie.
I just think the theme as well is very appealing, and it's something that I think I could probably teach my daughter, my 17-year-old daughter. She doesn't hate me yet, so I could probably
It's only a matter of time.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. All right, Condog, what have you got? What are you fired up about?
What am I fired up about? So literally as soon as I jump off this call, I'm going to try out our good buddy Sam McDonald, something Sam McDonald's been cooking up on TTS. I'm so excited. It's sort of like a mystery. So after I talked about Circadian's Chaos Hoarder on the show a couple of months ago, he's like, oh, I'm so glad you talked about it. If you like that, I've got something that's going to be even better. So myself and a couple of the other hosts, Adi and Joe are jumping. I think Tom's going to view it from afar, along with Sam. So I'm so excited. I just love Circadian so much. Adi's been playing it a buttload too, and I think he's excited to talk about it. So if Sam lets me, I'll be happy to talk about how it goes in a future episode. As much as I'm allowed to.
Well, there you go. That sounds like heaps of fun.
Yep.
All right. So my fired up this week is not so much a fired up as a winding down. And I haven't actually shared this with anyone, so it may or may not come as a surprise, but this is the last episode I will be recording with the Board Game Barbecue podcast. I've made the decision to step away from the team and the group just because I think the podcast has just run its course for me. It's nothing that there's no issue or concern or anything. I still love the team. I love all you guys. Wish everything the best for the Board Game Barbecue going forward in the future, but my time has come. Let's say the end game condition has been met and it's time for me to move on. So I've made that call and this will be the last one for me. So thanks to everyone who's supported me along the way and followed along and shared this journey with me, but I'm going to call it.
This is really sad, Mitch. I've actually I had my mouth open. Flies could have been flying in there.
I always said when it was my time, I would just say it's my time and slip off into the night. So that's the plan. That's what I've decided to do. It's something I've been sort of pondering for a while, and I thought that PAX would be a nice time to spend the time with everybody, with the exception of Lauren. She didn't get to make it there due to the wedding and stuff, but it was an opportunity to just enjoy that last sort of time as a member of the team. Not that it will be my last PAX and not that it will be the last time that we hang out, but last time as an official member of the Board Game Barbecue podcast. And we did that. I think we had a great time, and it was the time to be able to walk away with my head high and in a place where I'm really enjoying it, and it's just time to go.
Oh, well, this just sucks. This is awful. You're like, you and Dan are the only people in the same, like, generation. Oh, for God's sake.
Dear.
Well, it goes without saying that if you ever want to pop your big, beautiful, bald head back in to record an episode, I'm sure you'd be more than welcome to, even if it's just to poke fun at me. And who's gonna comment on my size now? Like everyone else just doesn't have the same.
Well, on the bright side, people won't confuse our voices from now on.
That's true. There'll only be one.
There will be only one.
Deep-throated brethren.
That's exactly right. Exactly.
How long have you been planning this for?
I feel like this needs to be a behind-the-scenes episode now. Look, it's something that I sort of been thinking about. I probably started thinking about it actually before PlayCon, and I initially thought maybe PlayCon's the big event that will be the last event, and then we got done PlayCon, and I just felt like I just didn't feel like it was right time. I thought, no, it doesn't feel right. It would be a bit clunky. And then I thought, well, next sort of big event is PAX. We'll see how that goes, and it just feels right. It just feels like the right time. So yeah.
I mean, that's the time to do it. From a personal perspective, like, I'm going to really miss you. I will. I'll miss you being here.
Oh, no, and I'm not going anywhere. I intend to fully still be part of the community, and I've thought about what I do, like what I'm going to fill my time with now that I won't be doing the podcast and won't be doing all the other things, and I don't have anything. I'm not like Sarah where she's obviously doing her game design and that sort of stuff, and Def's doing his streaming and things like that, and I don't have a passion that I'm looking to get into, and so I'm not going, time to move on to the next project. I'm just looking forward to being able to go. I'm looking forward to being able to play games as they're designed, in terms of just enjoying the games for playing games. I'm looking forward to going to game days and just chilling out and having fun and having a laugh with people, and smashing burgers at lunchtime without having to worry about getting back because I've got to be on the door or I've got to teach or something like that, People, I remember at PlayCon, a lot of people, said, let's sit down and play a game. And I didn't, because when I get to events and things like that, I feel like I'm in a different mind state. I'm in a different mindset. Just looking forward to being able to just consume the hobby as opposed to be a part of it, if that makes sense. I don't know. Just time for me to move on. It's just it's not a good, it's not a bad. It's just it is. And I'm looking forward to what tomorrow looks like when I wake up.
Fuck me. Oh.
Now? Or like what? Oh dear. So that'll do it. It's wrapped up, folks. Thanks for coming along. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Thanks, Con.
No, thank you, Mitch. Thank you for everything. Thank you for being my big brother.
No worries. Always will be. And thanks, Dana. It's been great.
Oh, my God. Best of luck, Mitch.
No worries. And do it again next week, and I'll be listening. Cheers. Bye.
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 All right. Are we on and ready to roll?
Ready.
Got wiggles?
Testing.
Hello, hello, hello.
All right. We're all good.
Am I loud enough if I sit back here? Am I okay? Because I'm comfy and I don't want to have to lean forward. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, it's rough. It's rough when you lean forward.